Of the day. So the first section we're going to talk about today is choices. How can we make the right choices that lead to positive emotions and a positive life? So one of my favorite books of all time, and it's a controversial book, but it's my favorite book of all time. It's called The Fountainhead. So some of you may have read that book. In The Fountainhead, there's two characters. It follows two characters. They both have the same goal. They want to become architects. So one character, Howard Rourke, he has principles. He has values. And they drive a lot of his choices. So he believes like his purpose is to create the best buildings, and he can only create the best buildings if they follow what it means to him to create the best buildings. Does that make sense? So he follows this path, and his vision of best buildings is oftentimes modern architecture. So throughout the book, people give him opportunities. They're like, hey, can you design in the style of the Renaissance? Can you design in the style of the Romans? And he's always turning these opportunities down, because he believes that he can only produce the best work if he's designing in his modernistic style. So he's staying true to his value, true to himself. Now there's another character, polar opposite of him. His name is Peter Keating. So Peter Keating decides he wants to be an architect because someone told him he'd look cool. Right? Someone told him he'd make good money, he'd be respected in society. So he goes into this career, and throughout the whole book there's this reoccurring theme of when he has a choice to make, he gleans his choice from other people's opinions. He gleans his choice from how he thinks other people will perceive him. So near the end of the book, who do you think is the happier character? Howard Rourke, Peter Keating, yeah? Howard Rourke, okay, right on. So Howard Rourke is the happier character at the end. So would you guys agree that the choices we make on a daily basis can either increase or decrease our positive emotions that we feel? You guys agree with that? Okay, terrific. So we're going to look at how to make the best choices to ensure that we get the best results. And I'll give you one more example. Let's say one day let's say one night, you're watching this show, it's like a series, and you're into it. It's cool. It's like a really good series, maybe like Breaking Bad. If you haven't seen it, it's good. So you're watching Breaking Bad, you're hooked on it, and you decide, I'm going to watch a few more episodes. You guys ever done that? You watch a few more episodes? What happens? Like the clock just ticks by. So all of a sudden you're watching a few more episodes, and before you know it, it's like 3 a.m. You finished like the whole season. You're like, oh no, and you got to work at 8 a.m. the next day. So you go to bed that night, and you wake up early because you had your morning routine. You're going to read a book. You're going to study for something. You're going to make a healthy breakfast. But you're just so tired that you decide you're going to hit the snooze button a few times. And so you hit that snooze button, and because the alarm keeps interrupting your REM cycle, you get more and more tired. And you finally wake up, and it's like 10 minutes to get to work. So you decide, I don't have time for breakfast. So you grab that Pop-Tart, the Red Bull. You eat the Pop-Tart. You drink the Red Bull. You feel good for like 10 minutes, and then right after you're like, man, I'm so tired. And then you get to work, you have a presentation that day, but you're stressed out and you're tired, and you go to the presentation, you bomb the presentation, you finish work, you come home to your wife, you come home to your family, and you're stressed, tired, and defeated from the day, and then all of a sudden you get into an argument with your family. So can you guys understand now that how one bad choice can sometimes snowball into bigger and worse choices throughout our day? Okay, great. So we're going to look at how to make the right choice. How to ensure that we make the right choices. The first thing we have to understand is this one simple concept, is that throughout our life, throughout our day, we're constantly fluctuating between our higher self and our lower self. So who is the higher self? The higher self is like your ideal self. You picture that person. A lot of people picture the person who's honest, hardworking, clean, organized, never lies, never cheats. They picture that ideal person. Generally that ideal person feels pretty good. Who is the lower self? Well, I've been in the state of the lower self. So the lower self is when you fall into those petty little emotions. Like you're stressed, you're tired, you're hungry, and then someone says something to you and you just snap. You're like, ah. I had an experience actually recently. It says I'm trying to tell people about that I'm doing personal development. I made an ad on Facebook, and the ad is like me speaking. And all of a sudden I get this comment in there. It's like, who is this man in his blue suit? Whoever's funding this man in his blue suit, give me $200 and I'll do a much better job. And so if I'm in the lower self, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to be like I'm going to respond. I'm going to hammer on that keyboard, and we're going to get into like a fight. Or I'll just feel sad and I'll go off somewhere and cry. But what happens if I'm in that higher state? Like if I'm in the higher state, I'm feeling good on my ideal self, I'll look at that comment and I'll be like, maybe I can just be a place to absorb that hate. Maybe I can rise above that hate. Or I'll look at that and be like, oh, that's kind of funny. Like, this person thinks that some group is funding me, like a conspiracy. Illuminati is funding me again. And so I'll be in that higher self. So we're generally fluctuating from higher self to lower self. Now there's this book, Thinking Fast and Slow. A lot of people probably read this book. But in the book they talk about decisions are based on two systems. So one system, we make decisions instinctually, and generally that flows from emotion. The second system, we make decisions logically. We analyze, we think about it, and we make decisions based on that system. So what happens when you're in the lower self and you're feeling bad? What do you think you're going to make? What are your decisions going to be? They're going to resonate with that emotional state. So you're stressed, you're tired, and you had a diet plan. You're going to maybe have something delicious. You're going to have some carbs, right? Or you're stressed, you're tired, and you're in that emotional state. You're going to watch some shows when you should have been studying. So we choose things that resonate with that emotional state. So we're going to look at right now, we're just going to flip this. How can we make the right choices so that no matter what our emotional state is, we're always going to be able to choose choices based on our higher self, the choices that our higher self would make. And there's really three things that you want to establish right away. The first thing is values. So most people right now, if you asked them, like if you went up to someone on the street, you said, hey, like, what do you value? What are your values? And like they would know them right there, then and there. They'd say, I value honesty. I value integrity. I value my friends. I value hard work, right? They say that, right? They'd be able to pull that out of them. But what happens is when they fall into the lower self, they forget themselves. So, you're falling into the lower self, you're stressed, and, you and your wife or your husband, you have a disagreement. And because you're in your lower self, you forget yourself, you forget your values, you forget your ideals. And, you get in a big argument. And then you regret it later. You feel bad, you feel negative. So the first thing we need to have that most people don't is we need to have clear values. There's a book, Principles by Ray Dalio. And in the book, he explains that the values that he established at a young age, helped to steer him for his entire life. And he would review these values daily so that he could remind himself who his higher self is, who he desires to be, who he wants to be, and he could live in accordance with that. And there's a second guy, you might recognize him, Benjamin Franklin. So at 22 years old, Benjamin Franklin wrote down all his virtues for his life, and every single day he would review them. And each week he would pick one virtue that he's going to work on. He'd review in the morning, and then at night he'd check a box. Did I hit it or did I not? Was I honest, sincere, or was I not? And he'd make sure he checks it. So values are a great system, and you can create them very simply and then review them every day so that you can be the hero in your own story. You can be the knight who's on the quest. You can fall into that higher self every single day because you're reviewing your values and who you want to be. You're getting in touch with that on a consistent basis. So that's the first one. Right off the bat, like in this presentation today, I'm going a little deep. You might be like, whoa, like that's intense, right? You'd be like, well, that stuff's kind of intense. But it's good to start deep, and then this builds the foundation for the rest of it. So the second thing, so here's a few values actually here. I value my mind supply with quality information, quality people. Now what happens is you can read that every single day, and you're starting to interact with people. You're starting to meet new people, and you've read that value. You've affirmed who you are, who your ideal self is, and then you start to you start to realize, hey, one of my friends is really negative, and instead of just falling into the place where you just keep hanging out, keep associating, that you'll have reminded yourself who you are and what you like to be around. Or maybe you find yourself watching Jersey Shore. You guys know Jersey Shore? Right? You're just like you're watching Jersey Shore, and then but you remember the value because you read it that morning. Like I associate myself with quality information. You're like, is this quality information? I don't know. I mean, it's entertaining, but is it helping or hurting me? And you analyze that fact because you've looked at your ideal self and you've really internalized who you want to be, and you can do this at any point in your life. And then the last one, I do not try to control others. Every person is entitled to their own freedom. So has anyone else in the room ever tried to change someone? You tried that? That experiment? You tried? Has it, be honest, has it ever worked? I haven't met a person yet that you try and change someone and it works. Because usually what happens is you try and change someone and then you get emotionally invested in their outcome and then they don't live up to your expectations. You're like, come on. And you feel bad and it strains your relationship. So knowing the value of allowing other people to have the freedom to choose can make you feel much better. So we'll move on from that. The next one is goals. So our higher self, the person we want to be, the places we want to go, there are goals associated with that. Something we want to work towards. What happens one day when you wake up and you don't feel good, but you read that goal, you remember that goal? You feel good. You get this instant uplift. Motivation comes in. You remember what you're working towards, but it also pushes it to the forefront of your mind. So when you're going throughout your day and you're doing your actions, you'll realize maybe some of them aren't in line with your goal. Maybe you need to cause correct. So if your goal, your goal is to get really fit in the gym, your goal is to like lose 10 pounds, and it's near the end of the day, and you just find yourself veering off to like, I don't know, to go get some like chicken wings, or like veering off to like get some pizza, and then you remember like who you are. But if you hadn't reviewed your goal, you might forget yourself in that moment. Your actions wouldn't be in accordance to that. So that's the second one. And then the last one is scheduling. So scheduling really simply is, we can slot the tasks of our higher self, the person that we want to be, and so that we can simply wake up and we can step into that frame. We can press play. We can be that person that we want to be. So you wake up, you press play on the organize your space, you press play on the eat a healthy breakfast, and you can really just allow yourself much more structure and much more ability to be that higher self, be that person that you want to be. So that's the last one, scheduling. And the other benefit to scheduling really is like when you have everything written down, you take a lot of the information out of your head and you start to have more of an organized mind and you be more present to the moment. So probably a lot of people in this room, they're carrying around so many different things, so many different decisions. They're having that constant dialogue in their mind. What do I need to do next? Who do I need to talk to? Where do I need to go? You ever like lost your keys? You lost your wallet? You lost your marbles? You ever lose something like that? So where does where does that stem from, the losing of things? It stems from not being present to the moment. Because if you were present to the moment, you're in the moment, you're thinking about what you're doing, then you would remember that you put your wallet down there. But if you're up in your head, you're like, oh my God, I gotta do my laundry, gotta take the kids to the park, gotta make my food, and then you got these stresses from work, Jim from work, he said my haircut sucked, and you're just replaying that in your mind, and then you throw the keys somewhere, and you just forgot them. And then you end up spending like 2 hours looking for the keys. Does that increase or decrease the happiness? Probably going to decrease it. So scheduling is a great way just to take everything out of your mind, place it on paper. You could really go crazy with this too. Like you could put your oil changes, your haircuts, clean the bed sheets. Like you could take it to the extreme. However high you want to go, you can take it. So this really wraps up the first section. I know it goes a little deep, but the key idea here is that we fluctuate between our higher self, our lower self, the person you want to be. There's some person you want to be, and usually that person, when you think of them, it's like the hero on the knight's quest. But if you fall into that lower state, petty emotions, right, I've done it before, I become like a bitter little man, you fall into that state and you forget yourself. And then you act in accordance to those emotions. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay, so we're going to take a second now. We're going to take 2 minutes. You turn to that accountability partner, and you're just going to talk about something that resonated with you. Was it values? Do you have a value that you like to use? There's a place to put your value on the card if you want. Do you desire to schedule? Do you desire to set your goals? Or is everything I'm saying just completely crazy? You can have that conversation. So we got 2 minutes now.